Hello everyone, Kia ora, vanakkam, vandanam, namaste, namaskar, srikal, and good evening. I hope all of you are doing fine, and it is such a pleasure to always see you all back on Wednesday, 6 p.m. with me, Trendy Thalaiva Selva at India Live, where Colors Come Live. It's another week, and as we get into the week, I'm feeling that we are getting into some better weather with summer coming up, and we are feeling the temperatures going up after a couple of rainy days in Christchurch. Not sure about the weather on other parts of New Zealand. I'm also hearing that there were like severe thunderstorms, rains that are catastrophic that are happening in other parts of not just New Zealand but also across the world. Particularly the hometown where I come from, called Ambasamudram, and the district faced unprecedented rains. Um, and I think we had rainfall that had not happened for more than 1500 years in a town called Kailpatnam. Um, the entire day, we had approximately close to 100 centimeters of rain, which is like a lot of water, right? And there are a couple of dams around in those areas. And I heard that all the dams were like almost getting full and they had to let the water go. And it was flooding the entire district, and thankfully after like some 48 hours of rain, the rains started to subside, and because of preparedness as well as like stuff, water had receded in many places, but I'm pretty sure that there are like water that are still stagnating in more places. um, Same has been the case with Chennai. Unprecedented rains. Many places water had receded, but there are several places water is still stagnating, inundated. I also heard there was an oil spill that had happened from Chennai Petroleum Corporation Limited to the the river that is called Kosasthala in Chennai, and it was like cleanup operations that were going on. So yeah, we are seeing weather pattern that are like super serious, and I've always shared this with you all folks, that climate change has been like one of the reason for that. Uh, and recently the COP, which is the climate change conference of parties 28, this is the 28th time this conference is happening, concluded in the Emirates, particularly I think in Dubai, where all the nations come together and discuss about what they want to do in terms of like mitigation, adaptation of climate change plans. And out of all the conferences that have happened so far, this conference had a lot of significance, because if we are like, if the countries are like not agreeing to stick to the Paris Agreement's guidelines, which says that to limit the global temperature to a rise of 1.5 degrees over the next few years, and by 2030, like if we are not actually limiting ourselves and increasing the global temperature, which is the average mean temperature of the globe, by 1.5 degrees centigrade, the world would see a catastrophic effect of the climate change implications. Um, so this also meant that the conference had an agenda of getting the countries to agree about phasing out fossil fuels over a period of time, right? So this has been in discussion for a lot of, I mean, a long time, but this was the first time when the COP took that seriously and started to like sort of like discuss. Um, the outcome is kind of like okay and not okay. Okay because there is a mention of phasing out fossil fuels in the final draft outcome. Not okay because I think most of the countries are like not in agreement with whatever has been like said to them, so they still want to burn fossil fuels or kind of like explore oil and gas. And that would be a big threat to the oil and gas industry, right? So um, and that happening in the hotbed like Dubai, particularly the Arab countries that are like kind of like thriving on petroleum. It was a couple of last few days to watch out for. So I've been like reading a lot about that. Maybe, we'll do a separate show where we discuss in detail about what a COP means, why these countries come together, who are the people who will be there, what sort of discussions they do. However, one thing that the climate activists are like pretty sure, or like have been vocally voicing out, is about the resilience factor, for the community people, um, for the community people to be able to come back from all of this sort of like implications that the climate change would create, or like the consequences that it would create, right? So it's again left to people like you and me, to be able to handle with these situations. And why I am talking about all of these things is because that I am actually associated with these floods back in home, where people from Chennai are suffering, people particularly in my hometown are suffering. And it's always the poor who are first affected and impacted due to all of this um, changes, right? Because if you don't have a roof to stay, then all those water that's around you is going to be a bigger problem. And you don't have access to food, cloth, and shelter, which actually is miserable for a person who is actually living, right? Um yeah, it has been such a kind of week where I have been like thinking and reflecting a lot on like what's going on around me. So I just wanted to share that with you before we get into the show. But other than that, like, I want to know how all of you are doing. I know we are getting into that phase of the year where everybody would want to wind down. Some of you have already started your breaks, I guess. Some of you would be getting into break. Christmas is around the corner. Next week, 25th. You all must be planning to celebrate it with your families, friends. Might also be like planning for trips within New Zealand or like to India as well. So wherever you are, enjoy this period, enjoy the moments with your family, enjoy the time, enjoy the break, and feel recuperated, and come back with like a much more stronger and fresh energy in the new year. So as always, we will delve into the show with a Thirukural, and I'm gonna talk to you about a Kural that I wanted to share with you today, and I'll also share about like what the Kural means. And I'm also gonna then talk about a few experiences I had with respect to some of the interviews I attended this week and the last week. And let's see how that goes. So yeah, the Kural today I want to share is this one. நெருநல் உளன் ஒருவன் இன்று இல்லை என்னும் பெருமை உடைத்து இவ்வுலகு. I'll repeat it again. நெருநல் உளன் ஒருவன் இன்று இல்லை எனும் பெருமை உடைத்து இவ்வுலகு. So basically it talks about the impermanence of life. What a topic to talk about, impermanence of life. um we all cling on to our life as if like it's going to be like permanent, but it is actually an impermanent one. You all can actually see that directly by living your day-to-day life, right? So this moment right now is no more, it's gone. The moment I'm talking to you, it's no longer going to come back. Of course, I'm recording this as a video, so we might actually want to go and look back what happened, but it is no longer. Once the second actually moves from one place to the other place, the time is over, right? So yesterday is not no longer today, but you and I are, and we are going to be here for some time. So why don't we actually make ourselves better? And why don't we actually shell ourselves from living from the past? You may have had some hard things that had happened to you. You may have had some bad things that had happened to you. Also, you may have had some like great happy things that had happened to you. But if you just cling on to the last few years of your life and your past, you're also not moving forward, right? So you're trying to keep yourselves there. However, the time is no longer there, like it's actually ticking. So um enjoy the moment. Take your time to actually feel, do things that you like doing going forward, and don't cling on to those like moments that had passed. That's what Thiruvalluvar mentions in this. So one who was alive yesterday is no more today, and the world is well known for such fickleness, is what this Kural particularly means to say. um Which brings me to this interesting conversation I had with a couple of my friends in the recent time, where we discussed about the formats of being mindful, how one can become better, to be a better person with the everyday. So um, see, typically the world lives in a competition, right? To beat something, I am the best in something, I want to be the best of XYZ, I want to be the best in this ABC field, etc. Whereas, like, there are a very few people who reflect and say that I want to be better than who I was yesterday. And if you ask me what's one of my life goals, I would always say this, like, normally want to become a better person each day. Like, the Selva tomorrow should be a better Selva than who he is today. And the Selva the day after should be a better Selva than who I am tomorrow, or like I'm going to be tomorrow, right? So that's the kind of like goal I strive to work on. And I recommend that most people should actually think about being better than what they are today and tomorrow, just to become like more kind towards the world, and sort of like show that empathy, compassion to our fellow human beings, and then create a better world for each and every one. So when we were speaking about that, um, the topic and the conversation came back to sort of like meditation and stuff. And I know there are like so many different formats of meditations that are available. And India is known for a format called yoga that actually is a kind of like meditation, but also like helps your mind body to be spiritually connected within yourself, to be able to look at your inner self, reflect upon like what's happening, and sort of like engineer that sort of like happiness to make yourself a better person. So I shared my experience with one such meditation that I have come across called Vipassana. um, I highly recommend that for anyone and everyone, because it doesn't preach or ask you to practice any religion. So religion is ruled out of it. So you can, anyone and everyone can practice. Uh, and the course actually is like really helpful in terms of like deciphering certain things for yourself, allowing yourself to reflect those moments, and realize it as you go through when you do the meditation, instead of like somebody actually saying that these are the results and benefits that one can get. There is only one challenge about doing Vipassana. It's a course that you have to do for 10 days to start with. And I did it in 2012, which is 11 years ago. And some of my friends used to do it regularly, including a couple of famous politicians in Delhi right now. Who I don't want to name, because we used to be like friends, like we're still friends though. So they used to practice this meditation, and they used to go like every week. And so they recommended that why don't you try. So see, I'm generally someone who try to reflect on a lot of things as life goes on a daily basis. So at that point of time I said that, hey, look, I have like much more clarity on life, so this is what I think is the reason for so and so things, and this is what like I think in terms of like who I want to be. So I don't think that I need that sort of like reflection, or like insights into myself on going to a meditation. But all they said was like, you should definitely give it a try. I mean, they're not actually asking me to practice every day, so giving it a try was not a bad thing. So I didn't have anything to lose, so I agreed and I went to do this. It was a 10-day course. So the interesting thing is that for 10 days you won't be speaking to anyone. You have to be like non-communicative. No sign languages either. You can't read anything, you can't talk, you can't actually see or like meet people. No phones, no books, nothing. So um that was the biggest challenge, right? So once you start to think that for 10 days you're going to be in a place, it's a residential meditation though, where you need not like you will not be speaking to anyone, was like a big thing for me. And for folks who know me, I'm generally a talkative, or I used to be a talkative person, where I talk about something like might be nonsense as well. So I continue to keep on talking, right? So for me that was a challenge, but I took up the challenge and I went there, just to see for myself that what is it all about, like what's happening. And I should admit that by the end of the 10th day, I kind of like enjoyed what had happened. So I kind of like appreciated that entire meditation, entire thing, that what they were actually talking about, etc. It's a guided meditation course. For the first 2 days you will be like, मैं कहाँ आ गया, मेरे को यहाँ से छोड़ दो, मुझे अब घर जाना है, मतलब वापस जाना है टाइप्स का फीलिंग आएगा आपके अंदर. All they used to like start with is to kind of like focus on your breathing, because if you go for any meditation, I think most of the meditations would start with sort of like focusing on breathing, because that's the easiest space to begin with. Like you can actually, even in a simple mindful exercises, what they say is that sit in a firm position, keep your feet upright on the floor, and then sit straight and close your eyes, and then start to feel your breathe through the noses, because that's a very simple space where you can actually bring your attention to in any point of time. And then from there they then break it down into components. And I think why I'm speaking about vipassana here is that it has something in relation with the tirukural that we said, that speaks about the impermanence of life. So if you want to also experience, I think I recommend you all to just go and try that out once. Again, what worked for me will not, or like will work for you, so it's up to you to choose what works for you, and then do things accordingly. But this is something that you should experience, particularly the 10 day of like silence, the 10 day of like not speaking or communicating with anyone, gives you a lot of time to reflect upon certain things that had happened with you, or like why you are the way. And it's also a good place to break down things about the impermanency, and you know how you can actually reflect upon your inner self to be able to be better in situations which are otherwise like hard to handle. So yeah, I was recommending this to one of my friend. The interesting part about all of this entire thing is that vipassana is free of cost. I mean, you need not pay a single penny to sit through the course for 10 days. The boarding is free, the food is free, and it's always like paid forward by alumni who had done the course. So at the end of the 10th day, if you feel like donating something, you can. No compulsion whatsoever for anyone and everyone to like pay, which was good. I did that in India. I know that they have centers all over the world, and they also have center in um, New Zealand. Particularly, I think they have a center in Auckland. So if you wish, please to visit Vipassana's website and try out the course. It's something that I genuinely recommend for anyone to practice, if you are like keen on understanding meditation and then how that could help you. um Other than that, I did a few interviews this week, folks. Particularly, I did a couple of interviews, rounds of interviews with a council based in North Island. I'll let you know about the results of what had happened. But actually, the role was about, again, in the climate change space, wanting to work with. Sorry, folks, I'm actually finding some issues. Particularly, I think I got disconnected. Yeah, so I said that I was actually doing some interviews with a council based in North Island, particularly in the resilience space. I might or might not get that role based on the sort of like feeling that I have. The interviews both around really went well, which means that I do have like a good opportunity or a chance to get that role. So if that happens, probably I might move to North Island as well. I'll keep you all posted about like how and what is happening with me. But I think I might only get to know about all of these things in the new year, because you all know New Zealand goes on a break, particularly in the month of January and December, where everyone goes around and enjoy their break, etc. So let's wait to see what's happening in there. um, but I do hear a lot of queries from some of my friends who are in the job market, about like some tips and tricks about how to make a good resume, or like how to attend an interview, or like how to land on a job. So let's talk a few things about the resume thing, because your resume is a first sort of like introduction to yourself, about who you are, what you have done to an unknown recruiter who don't know you, right? So there are kind of like different sort of like shortlisting processes that happen in like different companies. Most companies still have a human who reads through the resume, and they then decide to either shortlist you or like not shortlist you. um, and see, typically researchers say that talent acquisition partner who gazes through the resume spends a 6 second on an average on a resume. So that's like a very very short time, right? So within the 6 second, if you need to grab an attention of someone, what could you potentially do? So the kind of like the flow of your resume does matter. So I always recommend either using a two column format or like a single column format. So if you see, if you're looking at a job in a market like Australia, then the recommended format to use it uses a two column sort of like resume. And if you're looking at a job in markets like US, New Zealand, I recommend a single sort of like column resume where everything flows together. um, and make sure that you don't actually have more than 2 pages. Have only 2 pages if you have experience for more than 10 years. And if you have less than 10 years experience, it's always good to have like a one page resume. And always like have your title included in the top. Title, and I mean like your name included in the top with your contact details. And you also then have a brief 3 to 4 line summary of like who you are, with a kind of like highlight of like whatever the role that you're applying for as a specialist in the top right sort of like section. And then you should be able to write through your experiences. And when you write your experiences, don't write a lot of information about the day-to-day operations of the role. Rather, actually write about a few projects that you have done that has helped improve the efficiency or processes in the job that you did. So basically always go with an action word to start a sentence, and then end it with a sort of like measurable impact. So for example, you can always say that developed a process to improve the efficiency of XYZ process. By the end of 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year, we improved from 5% to 10%. Something like that is a good sort of like an actionable statement to go into a resume. And always like try to highlight 2 to 3 such success points for each of the role that you did. And normally like try to have more information about the recent things that you did in your job. And highlight the last 5 years experience more, and talk a little less about the roles that you did before like 5 years. And it was also a good idea to always like highlight your skills in a skill section. And then you provide your education information, and then you provide information about any certifications or things that you had otherwise achieved or like received an award, etc. It is always okay to not include a reference section in the resume, because I know it does take some space. And you can always say that like you would give them a reference if they want, a sort of like thing, right? So um and don't be like too wordy in your resume. And if needed, highlight some of these action points when you write them. And look, that actually helps a human who is reviewing the resume to read the right and relevant words, whatever they are looking for, right? So now many people build a resume and then they send a single resume to every single job, which I think is a biggest mistake. Why? Because different jobs, um, though might be similar to the role that you have done in the past, m- but might require some other skills, or like, keywords that they want you to actually speak about. So a job description is a very good tool, or like it's like a key to, or the answer key to the question, right? Like what they are actually looking to, or like what they are actually going to read in your resume. So try to pick up some keywords from the job description and then integrate those keywords into a resume. um, and make sure that those keywords are like highlighted. It could be the same thing, but told in a different tone, or like told in a different way. So you can actually pick up some of the projects that you did, and start to break that down into like the components that would actually fit into the job description sort of thing, and then try to integrate that into a resume when you are actually building a resume for a specific job. By doing that, you are actually getting closer to be selected either by a human or also by a system, right? So nowadays many companies also use tool, particularly an artificial tool, that screens your resume and provides a match score. uh, so see, artificial intelligence always works on the way that we input things into them, right? So if I am actually looking for a keyword of, say, resilience in a resume, then if your resume does not have a resilience word, it's going to mark 0 out of 1, right? So similarly, I am looking at the word communication, I'm looking at the word competency, I'm looking at the word strategy, I'm looking at the word marketing, etc., etc. So if that doesn't, that is not there in the resume, the system is actually going to mark it down, right? So always try to have that sort of like match. And I use a tool called TEAL. That actually is really good because you can actually paste your job description and you can actually then build a resume and then get a match score, to be able to see that what are the hard and soft skills that are highlighted in the job description. And then you can actually see what are the descriptions or keyword that are missing in your resume, so that you can go back and then change those, and make sure that you include those keywords, and kind of like improve your match score so that AI systems also like shortlist. So my recommendation is, folks, like always build your resume that is relevant to the role, and make sure that you highlight and incorporate those keywords into your resume to be able to one, get shortlisted. And once you get shortlisted, you always get a call from the talent acquisition partner, where you can always like speak about in detail and then land in an interview. So for any job, the first key or the answer to the question is basically the job description. So read the job description well, and build your resume accordingly. And I'm pretty sure that most of you are smart enough to do all of these things. And once you do that, like you can always like land in interviews and you can get jobs. So that's what I used to do. So typically, like if I send an application to 10 places, I at least get a call back from 6 or 7. But again, like right now the job market is like so hard. And for every job, there are many talent people available in the market. So the rejection rate is more compared to normal, which is okay. And I think in case if that happens to you, it's not you, it's basically the market. There are more people who are waiting to either switch jobs or like don't have jobs or like looking for jobs. And with the recession around, it is tough. Hang in there. It's gonna change and it's gonna get better soon. And I'm pretty sure that all of you will also find a job as we enter into the new year. But folks, I think we are at the end of the show. So um, have a great holiday period. Enjoy the break with your family and friends. Be safe. I also recently read a news about an Indian tourist, or like a tourist, I should not say an Indian tourist, sorry about that. A tourist actually caught drunk and drive. So please don't drink and drive. Merry Christmas to all of you and your family, and I'll see you next week where we will also talk about the new year and new year resolutions. Until then, bye from Trendy Thalaiva Selva. And we'll again see you on Wednesday, 6 p.m. next week on India Live, where colors come live. See ya, folks.